I said it the other night. My second favorite book of all time. What's my first favorite book?
Spellbook of Judgment.
What's going on, party people? Logan JYA here, back again with another series. That's right, we are making spellbooks great again in the year of our Lord 2022. And I gotta tell you guys, this list is as fun as can be. I say this a lot, and I'm gonna keep saying it. Activating Spellbook of Judgment is a heck of a drug, and I'm telling you right now, if you want to have fun activating Spellbook of Judgment and doing some diabolical plays with multiple heavy-hitting engines, look no further, because Spellbook might be the deck for you. I don't want to preface this too much, but I'm going to let you know we got a full breakdown deck profile, as well as some replays at the end that you might want to see, because there's some darn good ones. We do some good annihilation and really controlling the game. This is a good control deck, guys, and I think you are really going to dig it. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Guys, I gotta be straight up honest with you. There was a lot to be excited about in the newest ban list, and obviously the latest and greatest thing that Konami did was bring Ben 10 to 3. But there was another cool thing they did there, and that was legalizing Spellbook of Judgment. And you know what that does for me? It lets me get nostalgic up in here, okay? Back in the day, let me take you on a trip before we get into this deck profile. Back in the day, 2013, Dragon Ruler format. Everybody's going crazy with their expensive decks, and one of them was Spellbooks. It was one of the best decks of that time, and it was because of Spellbook of Judgment. And now that that card's legal again, finally had the chance to play it. Because I'll tell you what, when I was a kid in 2013, no way in hell was I going to be able to afford this deck outside of playing it on YuGiOh Pro and Dueling Network when that was still a thing. But besides carbon dating myself, we're going to get into this deck profile. Now guys, don't get mad at me because this isn't a Drytron list. We're still going to have fun with it, and we're making this deck as great as it can be in the current format. I'm telling you, there's a lot of fun stuff that you could have here. And if you need something else to try on the side when you're tired of curb stomping people with Drytron, how about you give this a shot? I'm telling you, it's a good time. So, without further ado, let's dive into the list, and at the end, don't forget to stick around because we're going to have some replays, baby. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright guys, starting things off with the main deck monsters, we got our blue boy right here. Homie searches any spellbook. You basically normal summon him and you grab whatever you need. Now, this deck, it gets a little weird, right? Because these cards are so old, they have a lot of annoying requirements, like controlling a spellcaster, or like things like that, like having an additional spellbook card in hand. These are things we gotta stay aware of when we're playing a deck like this, because again, there are some insanely powerful cards in this deck that you're about to see, and we're leveraging some powerful cards from different engines, but at the same time, there's a lot of cards in here that are kind of mid. And you think about it, it's like, now I understand why it was okay for them to legalize Spellbook of Judgment, because the entire archetype is filled with mid cards. Blue Boy's kind of one of those cards, you know, he's small, he's level 2, so full Spright combo, not really, and he searches a spellbook. That's really what he does. He's one of your main normal summons, and we use him a lot, but yeah, he's absolutely mandatory. I'm just saying, putting it out there right now, in the spellbook archetype, the cards themselves are kind of mid, but you'll see, we make the best use out of them. We got 2 copies of Jowgen, alright? Jowgen is our goat here. Now, listen. If I was going to describe Spellbook in a way that would be kind of insulting, I would call it Boneless Flunder, because its strategy is very similar to that of Flunderee's, and that's locking the opponent out. Locking them out big time, and Jowgen is our guy that does it. It locks both players out of special summoning. It feels like summoning Vanity's Ruler, only using it by a spell effect while you're searching 3 to 4 to 5 cards at the same time. It does feel extremely diabolical, resolving Spellbook of Judgment, and Jowgen is more oftentimes than not the boy you're going to be summoning. We're playing 2 in case you hard open 1 and still need to resolve it for the Judgment, and at the same time, having it in hand is not the worst thing in the world, because you can normal summon if you have a way to back it up with something like Fate or Punishment. You 100% take advantage of that fact. Also, going second, it's not the worst normal summon. There are certain boards where you can absolutely crack them with just Jowgen on his own, because he has another effect. Discard a random card out of your hand, and then blow up all special summon monsters on the field. Low key, against a Mathmech board, you normal summon this guy in, they are not able to activate Factorial, and you blow up whatever they have there, and you just take control of the game that way. Unless they have an Imperm. Hope they don't have an Imperm, and then you're being chilling. But it's a really fun card, it's a really good card, it's a really degenerate card. Moving on to our next engine here, we got our homies the Dogmatikas. 1 Ecclesia, 1 Maximus, and 1 Fleur-de-Lis. Listen, I can't take credit for this. Almost everybody and their mother who's playing spellbooks right now is putting this engine in their deck. The real question is, what should your ratios be? One of each. You don't need any more. I'm telling you that right now. One of each will suffice. This with the Nadirs that is now at 3, we can take advantage of it as much as we need to, and these cards offer a lot of cool stuff. Ecclesia can either search Maximus or Punishment to back up your Jowgen. You're either backing it up with a Schism play, or you're backing it up with the Punishment to stop it from being run over by battle. Things you got to stay aware of. Of course, Maximus taking big dumps, getting big searches, big advantage, and it's also got a fat butt, 3K. Don't ignore that. Stats are important in this deck because one thing you struggle with sometimes is applying pressure. So keep that in mind. You want to keep those big bodies. You want to keep them sticking around so you can really leverage them to go in on your opponent's life points, because you're not almost... seldom will you ever be able to OTK your opponent. There are times, and the Dogmatika cards are the ones that allow you to do it, but you got to keep in mind that you really got to leverage your beaters. And of course, Fleur-de-Lis here is to be one of those awesome beaters as well as a negate. That's literally it for the monster lineup. What is that? Not a lot. It's 8 monsters. But that's all you need. Trust me, trust me, trust me. Let's get into the spell cards, baby. Start off with the big boy. Here he is. Oh, yeah. Spellbook of Judgment. It makes me excited. I knew this was going to get legalized. Come on. All the signs were there, guys. We saw it come back in Master Duel. We knew what the OCG was doing, and it was doing nothing over there, so bring it on back, baby. That's right. Let's search 3 to 4 to 5 cards in the end phase and summon a Jowgen. That's literally the inspiration for playing this deck. It is just a good time to resolve this card. I'm telling you, it is a drug like no other, so give it a shot. You'll have fun. On top of that, of course, we're playing 3 copies of Spellbook of Secrets. It just searches any spellbook. Excuse my mid-rarities and 1 decent one. That's a lot of this deck. You're going to see a lot of mid-rarities and then like a decent one every here and there. But yeah, 100%. Max out Spellbook of Secrets. Also maxing out on Spellbook of Fate. This is one of those cards that is actually good. This is one of those spellbook cards in the archetype that pretty much is impossible to power creep, with the exception of the fact that it does require setup. The setup is pretty easy to achieve though, especially if everything's going according to plan on turn 1. 2 spells engraved, 3 spellbooks engraved. That's how you really maximize advantage of it, because you want to use this to back up your Jowgen or out problem cards. And it's crazy because that last effect is a non-targeting banish, which we really absolutely want to leverage. On top of that, we're playing triple copies of Spellbook of Judgment because drawing cards is... Spellbook of Judgment, what are you saying? Spellbook of Knowledge because drawing cards is good, knowledge is power, and I read books. On top of that, we're also playing Spellbook of the Masters. This one is kind of mid. Like, this is what I was talking about earlier about the weird requirements that come along with the Spellbook cards. This one, you are required to control a Spellbook monster to do it, or a spellcaster type monster, excuse me. And then you also have to reveal a spellbook in hand to copy the effect of a spellbook engraved. Most often, you're going to be copying secrets to get another search, but you can theoretically copy any of them except for Judgment. You can't actually copy Judgment. That was a ruling I found out. You just can't do it. Judgment itself has to activate and resolve on its own, so stay aware of that. Now we go into the 1 of spellbooks. 1 spellbook of power. It is worth it to play the power, in my opinion, because there are going to be times where you want to beef up your guys. You want to have an additional spellbook activation. You know there's something on your opponent's board that you can run over with the power of the power. You do it. It gives you an additional spell counter on your Judgment pretty much for an end phase search, and it gets a free search after it runs it over by battle. It's also you're out to some big stuff, like boosting up a Fleur-de-Lis to 4,500 by going power and then mastering the power again. Like, sometimes it comes up, sometimes you got to do it. So we do play the 1 of power. Also playing a 1 of eternity, because there's a lot of times where you're going to want to resolve Judgment again, and the easiest way to do that is on your opponent's turn, banishing the Judgment with your fate, and then immediately using the eternity to add it back to your hand and make it the second spellbook card you play on your turn, so you can get maximized advantage out of it. And then I do play the 1 copy of Spellbook of Wisdom. You know, if you see it in the opening and can use it to block things like Imperm, or set it and then block things like Droplets on the opponent's turn, it's definitely really good, but besides that, you search it on the follow-up, so it's just an additional card to protect the Jowgen pretty much. And I think that's it for most of the spell books. We got a couple more in here, but I'll get to those in a sec, because the next we're moving on to field spells. 2 Secret Village of the Spellcaster. This card's absolutely insane. You basically throw this up with the full combo board is Jowgen searching a billion cards off Judgment and then having Secret Village face up. It basically says, like, good luck, have fun. There's very few decks that can deal with that full setup. Now, why are we not playing 3? Because it's a freaking brick if you see too many of it. We're already playing several field spells. I think 2 is plenty. So we kind of get away with that there. Just the 2 copies is enough, but it is insane. Just lock the opponent out of spell cards. On top of that, we got the 1 copy of the Grand Spellbook Tower. Listen, this is like a pretty bad card, not gonna lie. Another one where you have to control a spellcaster to get the extra draw in your own standby phase. But the whole thing about this is sometimes you're gonna need to search a spellbook off of your terraforming to resolve masters successfully. Or you just wanna give your opponent a do-nothing field spell. You give them the Grand Spellbook Tower, because of course we're playing set rotation. But yeah, I do choose to play the 1 of copy. And then the 1 of copy of Mystic Mine, because we have to have a little bit more degeneracy in here. Listen, it can be a win con. We're keeping the list at 40 cards. I didn't want to play any more copies of this, just the 1 of Mystic Mine. So if you need it, you can theoretically search it. And we got 2 ways to search it in the form of set rotation and terraform. You just search what's best in that particular situation. Move these out the way. Let's continue onward. Got some more power 1-ofs. Upstart Goblin is absolutely goated in this deck, because not only does it draw you a card, but it also is another resolution for your judgment, which gives you another search. Love it. Gotta love it. The one called by the grave, of course, so in case they try and ask judgment, you can just say no if you see this card. And I think that's it for those power 1-ofs, but we also, of course, got the triple Nadir Servants for the other engine. Of course, you already know we're taking advantage of the Dogmatikas. Of course, we're going to play Nadirs. This is a good going first or going second card. Keep that in mind. Sending Entis. Don't sleep on the fact you send Entis off this for spot removal. Big time comes up all the time. And then the other engine we're playing, the other cheeky little engine we slapped in here, is the striker cards. We're playing a small striker package in the form of Engage, Hornet Drones, Shark Cannon, and Widow Anchor. Now you're probably thinking like, well, don't these conflict with like your main strategy of going for the Jowgen and stuff? You're right, they do. But these are additional spell activations that you can activate on your first turn, or these cards can serve as going second cards, or you can low-key, like if you need to, play striker cards for a little bit to buy yourself some time, or apply additional pressure. These are all things to keep in mind, and I do think this is an absolute savage engine that's completely worth playing. And think about it, if you normal summon your Blue Boy, you can immediately link it off into an Artemis or into a All Mirage into Secure Garden and clear out your main monster zone, so during your main phase, you're able to play with these striker cards. And there are going to be turns where you can't get to the full Jowgen play. Having this as another strategy does come up, and it comes up big time. So I think this is a really good engine to give a try for Spellbook players. A lot of people who are giving the Spellbook of Judgment and the Spellbook strategy a try are doing it in a mix with like Runix or like Striker, but using the Spellbooks as the sub-engine. Here, the Spellbooks are the main show, and then the Striker and the Dogmatikas are your supporting engines. Moving on from there, we play 2 trap cards. Shaddoll Schism and Dogmatika Punishment. They both go with the Dogmatika engine. Not much to explain there. They're both good in their own right. You search this one off Ecclesia, you search this one when you take a dump with your App Cologne. Pretty easy stuff. So that's everything for the main board. I'm going to go through the extra deck real quick. Starting things off, of course, we got the one Artemis. It's a generic link one. Generic. It's a link one that requires only a spellcaster, so we got 1,000,001 ways to do it. Usually, it's going to be Blue Boy. After that, we got the one Al Mirage and the one Secure Gardener, kind of a similar deal with how we're using these guys. Sometimes you need to clear things up. You need to dump extra deck monsters into the grave for your Maximus. That's why we play these. It's just like what Invoke does. Moving on from there, I'm going to show you some fusions real quick. We've got the 1 copy, no JK, the 2 copies of Elder Entity Entis to send off of either Punishment or Nadir's Servant. The 1 copy of Garura to turn Nadir's Servant into an upstart on top of a search, pretty cheeky. The 1 Titaniclad, there's a lot of times you're going to be taking a dump with this. It's like kind of part of the full Maximus play, because it also gets you that search in the end phase for the Fleur-de-Lis, or the special summon of your Ecclesia, and then the search of the Fleur-de-Lis, depending on how you played out the turn. And then, of course, we've got the Shaddoll package in the form of the Winda, the Construct, and the Ab Cologne, all right? We got to play all those. All those are mandatory because they are your main backup plan. If your Jowgen gets stopped, removed, spit on, chewed out, all that other crazy stuff. Got to stay ready. So that's our fusion lineup. And then we are playing the Striker monsters. We're playing the 1 Kagari, the 1 Shizuku, the 1 Kaina. And guys, I apologize. The last 2 slots are 1 Zeke and 1 Hayate. I currently do not own them. Pretend that these are them. I've been borrowing them whenever I'm playing this deck. So my apologies in advance for that, guys. I hate not having cards for my deck profiles. I absolutely hate it. And I will literally wait to make a deck profile until I have the cards in hand. But this time around, I couldn't do it. Spoiler alert, some of the other cards in this list I am borrowing. Anyway, let's move on into the side deck. This one's going to be a super speed run because you're going to really get what our side deck strategy is very quickly. Ready? Triple DD Crow. Triple Nibiru. Triple Effect Veiler. Triple Infinite Impermanence. And then finally, triple evenly match, which is the only divergence here. We are siding 12 hand traps and evenly. The reason why we're doing this is because our whole main deck is built to go first. We have cards that enable us to go second, but the whole strat is to go first. When we know we're going second into a game 2 or 3, we're bringing in all the good hand traps that are applicable for that matchup, with a maximum number being 12. And then we have the evenly match to apply coverage for those matchups that the hand traps aren't working against, like your Runics, or actually evenly sucks against Runic, ignore me. Like your Eldritch or any other back row control deck. Technically, if you ever run into the mirror match, it'd be pretty flipping good. Now, you might want to consider doing something like Cosmics if you're really feeling fear in that Runic matchup or something like that. But I'm telling you right now, you want high impact. You want blowouts when it comes to this deck because, again, your main engine, some of those cards, kind of mid, but we're still leveraging them to the best of their ability, and we have access to one of the most broken spell cards in the game in the form of the Spellbook of Judgment. Now guys, there's not a lot of combo tutorials I can show you with a Spellbook deck, but I can show you some replays, so stick around. I'm going to show you some of those, and I'm going to show you how we made this deck great again. I hope you really enjoyed it. Let's get into it. Alright homies, diving in with replay number 1, and we're facing off against the tier elements with a little bit of that paleo thrown in there. We open pretty strong here with the Spellbook of Judgment, making that Valor on Blue Boy not really mean a darn thing. We're going to basically climb up until we get 3 activations to guarantee our Jowgen coming online. Homeboy's going to go for the Gizmek, but it's alright guys, because this is a cool thing you guys want to stay aware of. In the end phase, when you're resolving your Spellbook of Judgment, you have the opportunity to resolve a Spellbook of Fate since it is a quick play spell. So you want to take advantage of that fact. However, we do get hit with that nasty Imperm on the Jowgen. And he's going to be able to start resolving some stuff, going for the Kick Kalos, grabbing himself a Merly, going to go for that Big Mills here, that's that hot Mill 8, and Mills triple Havness, which is pretty freaking hilarious, not going to lie. But we end up, you know, adding back Spellbook of Judgment when our turn rolls around. He's like, nah, man, nah. Not going to be getting this one. He starts things off going for the Rhino Heart, DD Crow the Havness. He sets one and passes. Normal summon our Blue Boy. He goes for Havness and Imperm. Ends up absolutely whiffing and just leaving the game. I don't really care about game 2 here. The important thing here was game 1. And all I really wanted to show you guys is that quick little interaction and how quickly you can steamroll up through advantage. Not the best display, but just want to have that quick tip in there. Let's get into a real replay with replay number 2. Alright homies, diving in with replay number 2, and this is a real match here, my friends, and I think you guys are really going to dig it. We're facing off against the Live Twin Spright deck, and going second at that. He opens up, oh, and there's Runics in there too, can't forget about that. He's basically going through his entire combo line here. I've got nothing to stop it, nothing to do with it, but you have to see this because of how well we dissect this board and regain control of the game, regardless of all this advantage. Now, mind you, our hand is pretty darn cracked, but, like, it's still a going second with a hard-going first deck. So, we end up lining up the Judgment, going for the Judgment early here, since, like, honestly, I already know at this point, I'm going to need to resolve it in the end phase. So we go for the Knowledge for the draws, go for the Hornet Drones, and he's going to attempt to go for this pop. I end up call buying the Leela here. There's a little bit of an argument about that, but we got it taken care of, and he was a good sport about it in the end. He goes for the Smashers on the token, which is fine. We go for Nadirs, send the Entis to grab Ecclesia, and this is actually going to pop the Runic thing, because there's no reason to go for the IP if he's just going to dodge. Instead, we're going to use our Nadirs and our Ecclesia to grab Floor, and this is going to force out that IP. Whatever he summons will be negated, and we're able to crash into this guy thanks to Floor's little boosting effect, and him for a nice little 2k to the face. Now, mind you, we're not done yet, because in main phase 2, we get a set, we get a search off of Judgment, and we get to summon our Jowgen, alright? And we got our Fate backing up that Jowgen, which means there's very little for us to be worrying about. Opponent immediately concedes, and we move on into game 2. Now, guys, I gotta flag something about this game 2. Yes, I did open a DD Crow, but I went to go eat dinner with my housemate, and I didn't really pay attention and or care that much about this game, so I kind of just let him do his thing. He does some pretty cool plays here. He's playing the Corruptor Ibli, which summons to my field, and it locks you out of special summoning except for link summoning, which can be pretty impactful against a few decks, so definitely a cool thing here. But yeah, there was plenty of points to DD Crow. You don't got to tell me in the comments, but if you still want to, go ahead. Good for the algorithm. Anyway, he hits me with the tip, And it's like, yeah, like I said, I was eating dinner at this time. So he hits me with the tip. I banish Engage off the tip, of course. And then when I go for my blue boy, he hits me with the negate on it. Now, I know my hand is pretty good and I can play this out, like, relatively easily. But I was just like, man, I'm just going to go first, game 3, and try and steamroll him. And we actually have a pretty crazy game 3 here. So the opening hand is interesting. I'm trying to think about, do I want to run the risk of getting hand trapped and going for, like, the Judgment blue boy line or not? So we kind of have to reach for it here. Fortunately enough, I take the risk. I go for the blue boy play and the Judgment, and there is no Imperm Veiler or anything like that. I activate the Wisdom to give us the 3rd activation. Now, this is still kind of fragile, right? So we're locking him out of spells, but at the same time, we have nothing to protect our Jowgen from battle. Good thing is, his hand is all runic cards, which means we just get to laugh, and a Spright starter. We literally just get to laugh at him. So I just go through the motions, boost up my guy, make him a little bit bigger. Main phase 2, go for a knowledge, get some free draws, and then our Jowgen is protected with our Fate. I use Nadirs to send Entis to pop that and grab ourselves Ecclesia to start applying some pressure. Just start beating them down and gaining advantage. Put it in an insurmountable situation. And at this point, I decide to start redeeming some of my Fates to banish any of his set monsters, because my guys are kind of weak in terms of attack points. But hitting them for that 17, we're just going to keep controlling, keep on controlling. Honestly, dude, Secret Village is a diabolical card, and that's what really helps enable some of these locks. I just go for the other Judgment here to get the last copy of Secrets out of deck, which has one more target in deck, which is Knowledge. So I was like, all right, I probably should have used the Eternity to add back something else. But in the end, doesn't matter. Secure control of the game, nice spell cards, nice deck. Spellbook is a heck of a deck, but game 1 of this match really had me going there. I think it was well performed. Anyway, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode of making that deck great again. Let me know in the comments what deck you think we should make great again next. And don't forget, this ain't a political video. It's just for the memes. I love you all so very much, and I'll see you chumps later. Peace.
意志がそう四角い空心の隙間